Good afternoon and welcome to the Veterans for Cannabis podcast. You're here with Joshua David Linney. I'm joined on the phone by David Gunny Miller. He's a veteran himself and a member of the American Legion. And let him introduce himself and welcome to the show. How are you doing today, David?
Doing great, buddy. It's good to be talking with you today.
So tell me a little about yourself. Where did you grow up? What made you who you are? And what got you to the military?
Well, I grew up in a little farm town in Pennsylvania called Limerick, outside of Valley Forge. What made me do what I do? Because I was raised by my mom and dad, and they were very patriotic. My father was a World War II veteran, and my mother was a stubborn Irish lady that disciplined me, that made me the hardcore Marine I am today. But, that's where I was raised, and I just thought I graduated from high school. I wanted to go in the Marines and go to Vietnam. I thought it was my duty to defend my country.
Well, we're really appreciative of your service. Thank you so much for what you've done already for this country. So what was your experience like in the military?
Well, I went in when I was 17. I turned 18 in Vietnam after I went through all my training, the normal Marine Corps training at Paris Island, AIT, Advanced Combat Training, Guerrilla Warfare Training in Okinawa, and then I left for Vietnam. And, Vietnam was an eye-opener when you're getting there when you're 18. You don't even have a rifle or your equipment when you get in country. So it was a real experience, and, you had to stay alert. And that was one of the biggest things I was told from the time I got there. Don't try to be a know-it-all, learn. And the people that learned stayed alive. People that thought they knew everything and run by a book, they never made it home.
Wow. Well,
So,
and when you were over there, you were part of a pretty notable force over there, weren't you?
well, I was stationed with three different units. I was with 1st Battalion, 9th Marines, Bravo Company. They got the nickname Walking Dead later on. I served with the Cat Patrol up in Quang Tri, Providence, in Dong Ha, Quang Tri, and Khe Sanh area. And I was a courier for Force Logistics Command that dropped ammo and stuff. I was a gunner on a gunship that dropped ammo in and different LZs when we got shorthanded. So I did Marines do a little bit of everything, same as the Army did in Vietnam. You don't have one job to do. So, but it was,
Wow.
it was different, but it was something that I don't regret doing. I'm proud I served my country. I protected the guys alongside me everywhere. But my onus thing that I regret is the way we got treated when we come home. And that's why almost all of us dedicated ourselves to help the next generations. The same thing never happened to them. And
Wow.
that's what I started to do because, we didn't get benefits. We didn't even get our DD-214s and 15s corrected for almost 12 to 15 years and no benefits for about 30, 40 years. So we made sure that
Wow.
wasn't going to happen to any other vets, and that's what I've continued to do, and that's what I'm still doing now.
So after the service, then how long exactly? How many years did you serve total?
Well, I was in 22 total years.
Okay.
It was like 16 and a half active and the rest reserves. Okay.
And
I had to get out because of different medical issues. The biggest one was PTSD, and when I got out, I couldn't hold a job, so that's when I went back in the reserves. We just had a lot of problems, and they didn't know what it was back then.
well, so
No, okay.
that's a good point. So they didn't know what it was back then, and from what you've seen to then to now, do you think that's changed much?
Yes, they're trying to help people with the mental health programs. They have a lot of different outreach things to do now. And thanks to a couple of the Vietnam vets that we got involved with at Bay Pines over here in Florida, St. Pete, Florida, they're the ones that started the first vet centers, and they started the programs in the domiciliary, the 8 and 10 week program, inpatient programs. They're the
Wow.
guys that started that program, and now I'm still in I meet once a month. I'm in a group, same group for almost 28, 30 years now since I moved to Florida. And
Wow.
they've got groups set up for the younger vets. It's something that you don't ever get rid of. I don't care what you do, but it does help being able to vent to your own air veterans and
Sure.
not being put on medicine that keeps you all zoned and doped up.
Well, so when you got out of the military, what did you do initially? You said you went back into the reserves, but did you end up going using your GI Bill? Did you go to school? What did you end up
No,
doing?
well, no. What I did is I used the OG. Well, I did use part of the GI Bill. I used the OJT program. I went to carpenter school and tried to do carpenter work, and I mean, learned a lot, and they took care of me, but I just couldn't hold a job. I'd go to work for a week at a time, 2 weeks, and I'd disappear for a month in the woods in Pennsylvania. It was pretty hard. I mean, just one day I said, "Listen, man, I got to quit running." It felt like somebody was chasing us all the time. That's what most of the Vietnam vets will tell you. And like I would move from place to place constantly. I couldn't stay in one place ever.
So how did you get over that? What is there anything you did specifically to help you treat that PTSD? Did the VA help you?
Well, what I did, Josh, is I tried to get some help back in the early, well, it was late 70s, early 80s. I went to the Coatesville, PA Veterans Clinic. They probably have heard of it, and they were supposed to try to help us when they found out what PTSD was, and they still didn't know what it was. They called us all psychos, and they put us in a psych ward and put us on Thorazine and Prozac back then. They put us
Wow.
in padded rooms.
Oh my gosh. So was that the only solution the VA had for you at the time?
Well, at that time, and then finally I moved to Florida, and when I got down here, I got involved with the VA down here, and they seem to have a lot more programs down here. Yeah, I went almost 30-some years, man. My life wasn't always a bowl of cherries, buddy. I had a
Wow.
lot of problems. I lost my first house that I got through the VA. Had a lot of issues, man. I went through a divorce, lost my kids, but, my kids from my first marriage speak with me now, but it all hasn't been easy. But I turned my life around and dedicated myself to helping veterans, and it's sort of like that was medicine for me as well as the new programs they put us in.
Well, so I wanted to talk to you about some of the stuff you've done. So since getting out of the military, you've actually taken quite an active part in the veteran community on helping our other service members and veterans not have to go through what you went through. So how did you get involved with the Legion?
Well, when I moved to Florida, I moved to Seminole, Florida, where my aunt lived, and I went over and registered myself in the Bay Pines VA, and found out there was American Legion on the water. Post 273, I walked down and walked in the door, and it was almost all World War II vets.
Wow.
A couple of these guys walked up to me and said, would you like to join the Legion? I said, well, that's why I'm here. I said, when I first come back from Vietnam in PA, they didn't want the Vietnam vets in the VFWs, the Legions, or anything. So people seemed pretty friendly. I joined, and next thing I know, they had me running the honor guard because being a Marine, and I ran the honor guard for them for years. And I was the first Vietnam vet to be the commander of Post 273. It was all World War II vets, and they were the biggest post in the world the second year after I was commander. So
That's
I just got
incredible.
involved helping vets, involved with the Legion, doing anything I could, and got involved in the community, and now I got appointed as the VA VSO hospital rep, and I've been that for almost 30 years now.
So what is the VA VSO hospital rep? Can you explain a little bit to us of the people who aren't familiar with the Legion and their setup?
Well, every service organization across the country, they have the right through the National Advisory Council, through headquarters VA, to assign a person to be a national hospital rep at a VA hospital. That's a non-paying position. So I was assigned that at Bay Pines back in 1990 or 91. They submitted my stuff, and I got approved. And then I started doing it a couple of days a week. Next thing you know, I'm doing it 5-6 days a week, volunteering, helping vets, doing everything I can, honor guard stuff.
Oh, wow.
And then I decided to get involved in VA VSO, which is a service officer to help veterans with their claims. Back then, you could only assist them with them. You couldn't actually submit the claim, had to go through the state of Florida or sent to the national organization. but now we can actually help them walk them to the service officer through the American Legion and FDVA here at our VA to a paid employee, and they enter their stuff in the computer, which expedites the claims and helps the veterans much more readily.
Wow. So about how many veterans would you say you currently actively help at one time? Is that a constantly changing number, or is there an average that you?
Well,
I mean, how many are you responsible
how many
for?
have I helped in my lifetime, or how many do I help average? Like on an average, I'll get 150 to 170 phone calls, veterans that need help a week, sometimes in 2 weeks, and I mean it's gotten more over the years because my name has gotten out there that I've helped people. But I mean, for a while, I probably helped when I was first starting in the 90s and early 2000s. I probably helped at least 30 to 40 a week at least. And then I had to stop for a while because I got diagnosed with terminal cancer from Agent Orange. And I had to stop for a little while because of all my treatments. They said I wasn't going to be able to do it again, but I'm still doing it. So,
wow.
I went through a lot of treatment.
You're an incredible inspiration to all of us. I wanted to find out. So for us veterans who are just getting into being active again and are trying to get connected with organizations and are maybe members of ours who are with Veterans for Cannabis out there or other organizations, and they want to go get involved with an organization that has some power politically to make changes. What are some things that local veterans and veterans all over the country can do to get involved with the American Legion to pick up and continue the work you're doing? Because unfortunately, you won't be here all the time, and it's hard to find veterans like yourself who work as hard still for our brothers and sisters. So how can we get involved and help you help other veterans?
Well, I think you guys are by taking the reins with the Veterans for Cannabis because, I spoke with some people from your organizations, and you know that because of all the medicines and opiates they had us on for years and the pain stuff they had me on, I think I told you personally I was in a wheelchair for 5 years. I said I'd never walk again. Well, I'm walking now with walkers, sometimes with a cane. I mean, there's days that I can't walk, but I am. But I've gotten off of all the pain medications because I'm taking CBD oil and I'm, taking things like that. I just had to get off the opiates because all they did was make things worse. It just takes you through a different realm. But the CBD oil has helped me. I no longer have to get epidurals in my spine, which I was getting every 3 to 4 months. I take the CBD 2 or 3 times a day, and I also get battlefield acupuncture, which is something they started with the new vets that were in Afghanistan and Iraq. I'll give you a little background about that. The veterans that were losing limbs, they were still in a lot of pain from the nerve pain. Battlefield acupuncture is 5 gold needles in each ear. There's sensors in your ears that go to your whole body. And that's what they started doing over there, and now they're doing it to the combat vets in the VA hospitals as well as in the community. And it really works. I get it every 2 weeks, 5 gold needles in each earlobe, and they fall out after a couple of days. And it has changed my style of life. I can sleep a little bit now. Not that I sleep a lot, but for years I never slept at all. I had trouble sleeping like 2 hours a night. I mean, so I mean, you guys have paved the way, and the majority of us, not just myself, my deputy, a lot of the Vietnam veterans, we are supporting to help you younger veterans, so you guys can carry on the torch of what we tried to do to help you guys, because you guys aren't going through what we went through. We're making sure of that. But we also want you to keep the torch going for all your new ideas like the cannabis and anything else that we have coming up. And we're involved with stand downs. I know a lot of you guys are coming to the stand downs now to help us out. We got veterans in the community that have mental issues, medical issues, financial issues, and because of those 3 issues, we have suicide issues.
Yes.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
If they didn't have medical issues, mental issues, financial issues, they would not be committing suicide.
Well, and that's an important point to make. So, from what I've heard you say, though, is you have used